The Battle of Duck Lake, the 26th of March 1885, was an infantry skirmish 2.5 kilometers outside Duck Lake, Saskatchewan, between Northwest Mounted Police Forces of the Government of Canada and the MEAQTI's militia of Louis Riel's newly established Provisional Government of Saskatchewan. The skirmish lasted approximately 30 minutes, after which Superintendent Leif Newry Fitzroy Crozier of the NWMP, his forces having endured fierce fire with 12 killed and 11 wounded, called for a general retreat. The battle is considered the initial engagement of the Northwest Rebellion. Although Louis Riel proved to be victorious at Duck Lake, the general agreement among historians is that the battle was strategically a disappointment to his cause. Prelude. On March 19, 1885, Louis Riel self-affirmed the existence of the new Provisional Government of Saskatchewan. Following Riel's declaration, the Canadian government sought to reassert their control over the turbulent territory. Leif Crozier, the newly appointed NWMP superintendent and commander of northwestern Saskatchewan's forces, requested immediate reinforcement to Fort Carleton because he feared the growing instability created by Riel and the ever-growing possibility of a First Nations uprising. Riel dispatched emissaries to deliver an ultimatum calling for the surrender of Fort Carleton without bloodshed. Crozier's representatives rejected the demand and vowed that the MEAQTI's leaders would be brought to justice. On March 25, in need of supplies for his men and horses, Crozier ordered Sergeant Alfred Stewart, Thomas Mackay, and 17 constables to Hilliard Mitchell's general goods store at Duck Lake. Unbeknownst to Crozier, however, Commander Gabriel Dumont, Riel's right-hand man, and his MEAQTI's force had already entrenched themselves on the road to Duck Lake. On the morning of the 26th, Stewart's party encountered the band of MEAQTI's near Duck Lake. After ample harassment, Stewart decided not to risk a physical engagement, and chose to return to Fort Carleton. No shooting occurred. Crozier rallied together a larger force, which included 53 Northwest Mounted Police non-commissioned officers and men, 41 men of the Prince Albert Volunteers, and a 7-pound cannon, and set out to secure the much-needed supplies and to reassert the authority of the Canadian government in the District of Saskatchewan. Battle. The forces met about 2.5 kilometers outside Duck Lake on a snowy plateau covered by trees, shrubs, and a few log cabins. Having spotted Crozier's force, Gabriel Dumont ordered his men to set up defensive positions around the log cabin and lie in wait. Similarly, Crozier's scouts informed the superintendent of the movements of the MEAQTI's. Subsequently, Crozier ordered his men to halt and deploy their sleighs parallel to the road which was just before them. Both sides took up defensive positions. Gabriel Dumont dispatched his brother, Isidore, and an elderly half-blind chief, Assiniboine, with a white flag in hopes of distracting Crozier's forces. The superintendent, believing that Dumont was interested in a parley, walked forward with an English MEAQTI's interpreter, Gentleman Joe Mackay. During the half-hearted discussion, Crozier came to believe that Isidore and Assiniboine were stalling so that the MEAQTI's force could maneuver to flank his own men. As they began to leave, both Assiniboine and Isidore attempted to draw their guns, prompting Crozier to give Mackay the order to fire. A brief scuffle ensued between the two parties, which resulted in Mackay shooting and killing both Dumont and Assiniboine. Despite the superior firepower and training of Crozier's militia, the MEAQTI's force were more numerous, and the position within the log cabins and the tree line proved to be an overwhelming advantage. In an attempt to relieve the pressure on the Prince Albert Volunteers, Crozier ordered the 7-pound cannon to target the log cabins. After numerous discharges, a shell was placed in before the power charge was inserted, which disabled the cannon for the remainder of the battle. Within half an hour, Crozier recognized the unavoidable and sounded a general retreat back to Fort Carleton. The MEAQTIs were eager to chase down Crozier and his retreating force, but Louis Riel intervened and declared the battle over. Aftermath. The battle toll was high for the government forces. 12 men were killed, and 11 men seriously injured. For the separatists, 5 MEAQTIs warriors were killed in the skirmish, including Dumont's brother. Furthermore, Gabriel Dumont himself was injured in the head by a passing bullet. Losing to Riel and the MEAQTI's force came as a great shock to Crozier's superiors. Colonel Aitchison Irvin, Crozier's supervisor, suggested that Crozier's officerial prowess and judgment was overruled by impulsiveness. Fort Carleton, a trading post with few defensive installations, was now in serious risk of attack. Immediately, Colonel Irvin summoned a council to discuss the future of Fort Carleton. The resounding unanimous decision was in favor of the evacuation and destruction of the fort. By 4 a.m. on the 28th of March, the last sleigh had left the smoldering fort. In the span of 3 days and with the loss of only 5 men, Riel's forces had defeated Crozier's militia, forced the destruction and scavenged the remains of Fort Carleton, and spread fear of MEAQTI's uprising throughout the Northwest Territories. Riel's plans were not completely successful, though. He had hoped to capture Crozier and his men as hostages so that he might force the government's hand. Thus, while tactically successful, the Battle of Duck Lake proved to be a strategic disappointment for Riel. Legacy. The site of the battle was designated a National Historic Site of Canada in 1924. In the spring of 2008, Tourism, Parks, Culture and Sport Minister Christine Tell proclaimed in Duck Lake that the 125th commemoration in 2010 of the 1885 Northwest Resistance is an excellent opportunity to tell the story of the prairie, MEAQTIs and First Nations peoples' struggle with government forces and how it has shaped Canada today. Quote, Duck Lake is home to the Duck Lake Historical Museum and the Duck Lake Regional Interpretive Center, and murals which reflect the history of the rebellion in the area. The Battle of Duck Lake, the Duck Lake Massacre, and a buffalo jump are all located here. The first shots cairn was erected on Saskatchewan Highway 212 as a landmark commemorating the scene of the first shots in the Battle of Duck Lake. The Our Lady of Lourdes Shrine at St. Laurent north of Duck Lake is a local pilgrimage site. See also, Northwest Rebellion, Provisional Government of Saskatchewan, Prince Albert Volunteers, Northwest Mounted Police, The Story of Saskatchewan and Its People Volume 1. Duck Lake.